Welcome everyone to a very special tea time with me, Amanda Perchaska. I'm so glad that you're here today. I met my friend, Michael, who you're going to introduce yourself, Michael Lopez, but I met him a couple weeks ago and I was like, you need to come on tea time with me because we're kindred spirits when it comes to change practices, change management, how change management sometimes is broken and how we can improve upon it. Michael also launched a new book just recently, so we're going to hear a little bit about his book today too. So I cannot wait for this. I don't have a fancy drink today, but grab your favorite drink and let's sit back and enjoy each other's company for the next 15 to 20 minutes.
Thanks, Amanda. This is great. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So first question for you is, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a non-alcoholic athletic beer. I don't have any affiliation, so I'm not trying to sell extra cans. It's Irish Red in honor of St. Patrick's Day. So it's really good. If you've never had them, it's a great brand. And yeah, I'll have one in the middle of the day. Why not? It's non-alcoholic.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have my electrolyte water today, so I'm not quite as fancy as you, but living in the desert, you need electrolytes. So
That's what you do.
I will stick to that. But I love how on brand you are with St. Patrick's Day right around the corner.
Yeah, I got lucky. I didn't mean to do it. See what I did there? I said I got lucky.
There you
that was
go. But
unintentional.
on chain. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in. I am when we met a couple weeks ago, I was super intrigued by your background and your story. So maybe we should just start there around your personal journey from consultant to founder and what motivated you to do that.
Yeah, no, we are very similar kindred spirits. I spent the bulk of my career in what I would call big consulting. I sort of started working in the federal government for about 5 years in military intelligence, which was a very unique and one-of-a-kind experience, and migrated from that into a company called Booz Allen Hamilton, which many people know, very well known, big, fantastic company, and then journeyed into a in-house role. Figured out I was a consultant after a couple years. I like the variability of this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Spent time in Big Four consulting, and then in a boutique shop before starting my own practice about a year and a half ago. And in many ways, in and around the idea of transformation and change, I sort of stumbled into this job in many ways. But the motivation for starting my own practice really was what we talked about. I mean, I think the world of organizational change management has been in need of some innovation over the last several years, and again, really good people doing hard work, well-intentioned, well-meaning, passionate, care about other humans, and I think that's wonderful. But a couple years ago, I started to kind of do what I call the real talk of change, and talk about how hard it is and what we should be doing differently and how do we think differently about the science of change. And so that really became the platform for me to springboard into my own practice and then into my book. And so it's really been a great 2 or 3 years, I guess, in this transition that I've made. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at it for 6 now, and it's been like the snap of a finger. Like I feel like it goes so quickly, but when you're passionate about something, it makes work fun and intriguing and like an adventure every single day. So so change is hard, right? Like it comes down to people. There's a lot of science behind it. And when I use the words change management, I often hear from potential clients, oh, you're going to do some communications and some training. Okay. That's what we hear.
Yeah. So that's why I started what I'm doing.
So I've started using more language around change adoption versus change management. It has a little bit of a different connotation around it. But I do agree that it's ripe for disruption. Not only is it hard, but we also, and I think you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but we're going from like 5-year long projects to like weeks. And the pace of change is completely different. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation today because I think you have some phenomenal ideas and you happen to write a book about it. So can you tell us a little bit about your book and what it entails?
Yeah, no, and I think one of my big realizations in the journey of change management, I don't even use the term anymore, quite honestly, um, is that we do things in organizations because they feel good and because we believe that change at scale is sort of a possibility, right? Let's send
Right.
everyone to the same training and put them through the same communications and all of those things. And those things play a role. But at the end of the day, the unit of measurement in change is the individual, right? We all come
Yes.
to this with our own experience, with our own beliefs, our own backgrounds, our own skills, right? And one of the things I talk about in the book, and it's a fundamental truth, right? Two fundamental truths. Number one is that no two brains on earth are the same.
Yep.
And we tend to put a paintbrush over stakeholder groups and pretend that if we do something for one stakeholder, it automatically works for another.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is that you can only change yourself. And I think those two realizations are part of what I think separates kind of the change practitioner that is sort of in it with teams down at the working level, one person at a time, one team at a time, making things happen. But in the world of big consulting, that doesn't sell a lot of tickets, right? It's
Right.
not really
It's not a
that's
playbook.
that yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
so that led me to the book, which was really this idea that if we understand what's happening to us at the microscopic level when we try to change, well then we can start to use those experiences to our advantage. And so, you don't send someone to a 30-minute online training and pretend that they're different, right? Change takes repetition, it takes failure, it takes feedback, it takes stress and struggle and starting over. It takes focus. The way we learn as adults is entirely different than the way we learn as kids. And so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to create a place where people could go to kind of get the skinny on the foundational science of change and then start to build a process around which they could build this ability, because change is an ability. You can
Yeah.
build a muscle to learn how to change. And for me, to your point about the accelerating pace, I don't care what the goal is. If I'm good at changing, then I'll keep up because I can just rinse and repeat that process. So that's what the book's about. I started writing it about organizations and I decided, no, we need to step back and start at the very beginning of this conversation. So yeah, it was a joy to write. It's so far landing with folks, and I hope your audience will take a look at it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm actually in the process of writing a book too, and I love the passion that you're bringing to the topic because it does start with the individual. And if individuals can get better at adapting and moving through change, then
Yeah.
that's what the name of the game is all about. I took a little bit of a different take. I'm talking about leaders who are leading change and how they can help
Mm.
their teams and not royally screw it up like I've done so many times in my life. So even with my own
Yes.
kids, right? You come
If you're
across it
not
all the time.
if you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. And one of the foundational concepts in the book is, errors aren't just necessary, but they are the foundational trigger for opening up the possibility for neuroplasticity, right?
Yes.
An error signals to the brain that something needs to change and something needs to be different. And so, it really is about becoming comfortable with mistakes, stress, those kinds of things. And, for most of us, we're told, don't be too stressed out. You don't want to struggle. You don't want to get too far. And the truth is, the growth is in the struggle, and
Yes.
that's it's a big foundation of my approach to coaching, to consulting, to working with teams, to leading, to living my own life. And so, that's really what the book is about.
I love that you brought that up. I actually just had a conversation with a leader a couple of days ago, and she was mentioning that part of her talking points was to be to her team that not to stress, this is no big deal about a change that they were going through. And I was like,
Right.
I know you're well intended with that statement, but maybe there's a different way to do that, right?
Well,
Us,
and I think that what's so interesting about that is there's there's actually the amplification effect of when a leader says this isn't hard and it
Hmm.
inevitably becomes hard,
Right.
it actually makes it worse because it seemed you said this wasn't going to be difficult, right? And now
Right.
you've got a compounding problem. And so yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, when my feedback to her was, okay, you say this to someone who's already stressed. How are they going to feel about it? Are they going to feel like
Yeah.
they're being heard in the change? Most likely not, right? It's going to feel like you're glossing over how they're reacting to the change,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And this is one of the things I think you and I share in our approach to this world of kind of disrupting the space of change. And, I
Mhm.
think I'm not going to poke any specific company in the eye because that's not
Right.
what it's about. But
Yeah.
there have been more than one time in my career where I've been working with a partner or somebody in a functional team or another service line, and they've said to me, "We don't want the client to think this is hard, and we want to win the job, and then we'll upsell them in the experience later." And I was like, first of all, it's disingenuous at best, it's dishonest at worst, and the truth
Yes.
is it is hard. So I wanted to be able to have the real conversation with clients. And then I think for our role as practitioners is, um, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to help you through it, and it'll be okay, and it'll be difficult, but on the other side is what you're looking for, right? And so
Yeah.
I often tell my clients in the middle of workshops, in the next 8 hours, at least each of you at some point will be intensely irritated or mad at me, right? If you
Yes.
are, that means we're doing it right, right? So that's a signal to keep going. So
Ah, note to everyone listening here. No, it's good. There's goodness in that struggle and the journey around it. That's why I always call I use the word adventure because in every great adventure, like every great adventure book or tale that was ever told, there's always an immense struggle, right?
yeah,
In
yeah,
that
and
journey.
in the book, one of the things I talk
Mhm.
about, and this is sort of the foundational science of what we know about the brain, right? And so most people think dopamine is the reward hormone, right? I feel good when I get a hit of
Right.
something. It's actually the pursuit hormone. It's the hormone of anticipation, right? And if you look in extreme versions at like the addiction cycle, what you see is the highest level of dopamine happens before somebody indulges in whatever they might be addicted to,
Yeah.
and that's because our brain is designed to be striving. That's when we're at our best. We're at our highest focus. We're at our highest energy. We're at our highest motivation. Our eyes are in the front of our head, right? We are looking forward in the world. And so that's the thing I think that most people need to understand is that if you can embrace that idea, you're actually better in modestly stressful, intense moments where things need to happen because that's where you're striving the most.
Yep. Oh, I love that. Ooh, it's like giving me goosebumps. It not only helps with people that are going through change, but like, I was coaching someone yesterday and she's starting her own business and
Mm,
she told me she's feeling a little bit overwhelmed because of all of what's going on and the reality that she's actually doing this. And she said all these things came up this week that would pull her away from her eventual goal. And I said, it's kind of interesting when there's action and movement forward, there's usually also a reaction to that in the universe.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's what we feel when we're going through a change. Like it is a struggle, and you want to get there potentially sometimes, not all the time, but you want to get there. But there's usually stuff that's pulling you backwards away from that too. And
There's
it's a struggle.
always, yeah,
Yeah.
there's always stuff. And
Yeah.
that's where the growth happens. And I tell a lot of people, you hear this a lot, but sort of removing yourself from the outcome and focusing on the inputs, right? So I spend a lot of time with my clients, not, I hate KPIs. I hate those sort of things
Right.
because we don't accomplish those things in one day or in one week or in one month. Instead, let's focus on the inputs to performance, right? What are the
Yeah.
things that are holding me back from being good right now? And let me practice those behaviors and get better at them. And the performance will come. But we have to
Mhm.
think differently about my relationship with effort. And that's another big piece of what I talk about in the book,
Yeah.
right? Which is we spend a lot of time, particularly in goal design, designing outcome based goals. And what
Yeah.
we need to be thinking about is effort based goals, right? What are the things that I'm building and striving towards. And then, you might find out the goal you originally wanted, you don't want anymore anyway, because you've learned something else, right?
Right. Oh, very intriguing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about all of those folks that are out there leading change right now, whether that's in their corporations, whether that's in their lives, like they're making a big decision. What are some of the recommendations that you would have for that group of people for this year and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is we hear about taking care of yourself, and we all use that phrase.
Hmm.
I think yes, but understanding what taking care of yourself means. It means investing in the skills that allow you to be resilient, self-inducing moderate levels of stress so you become effective at dealing with, intense emotions or intense experiences. So taking care of yourself certainly is sleep and nutrition and diet and
Yep.
exercise and all of that stuff, but it's also about putting yourself in situations where you're the director of your own sort of stressful journey, because it gives you a kind of a mindset and an empowerment to keep going. So I think that's the
Yep.
first thing, right?
Okay.
And that, I think, then the second thing is leading by example, right? And I mean, I was just at a client this week, a client of mine that's a hospital. They actually do the food and the like hospitality services, the room cleaning and all that sort of stuff. And we're building some corporate values for them for the first time ever. It's a big place. They've kind of grown up through acquisition. And to a person, the folks in the front line all said, we want our leaders to act this way first. We want to see that you are leading the charge in these behavioral shifts that we're making. And so to me, that's the greatest example of leading by example, talking about what you're struggling with, how you're dealing with it, expressing uncertainty, and yet continuing on. All of those things I think are really, really important.
Hmm.
The last thing I would say is don't be afraid to break some things along the way, right? And I think this conversation that we started about the historical world of change, right? Like,
Right.
don't be afraid to do things differently. Like I don't know, so I'm going to get in trouble here, but I've never seen the Case for Change document change anyone.
Right.
How many times have we written those things, right? It's a two-page
Yep.
document designed to talk about, or the what's in it for me, right? We talk about that a lot.
With
What's in it for,
thumbs?
yeah. I just, you know what? Spend time with people, right? Spend time on the ground with them in these moments. That's the best way to help people work through this experience. And so,
Hmm.
don't be afraid to try new things. And I think it's just, we've followed the same playbook for a long time, and I think it's time to start venturing beyond that.
Yeah. I always tell people that an email has never changed anyone, truly
Never.
changed.
Not one
It's
time.
like,
Not
and
one
we have
time.
these beautiful, really long communication plans that are filled with
Yeah.
emails that are only one directional. Yeah, so I absolutely agree with that. And one of the items that I always bring up with my clients is with the sponsors, like the people who are leading this effort. And I use the example of a sponsor on the back of a t-shirt. That's not what we want,
Right.
right? We want someone that is going to be authentic and in the details and hands-on and
Yeah.
showing people through their leadership what the example of the future is going to be. And that's a lot more than just slapping a name on the back of a t-shirt,
Yeah.
which is what we get so often in
Yeah.
change programs. Like, oh, I'll be your sponsor. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Change is not it's not a top-down experience. It's a ground game, right?
It
You
is.
are you are in it. And that, I think, is such a parallel for your life, right? We design these goals for our lives that are, well intentioned and things that we desire to have. But the truth is, real change is boring. It's repetitive. It's focused on tiny details, and then it builds from there. And so I think that's just how we have to keep helping our clients work through this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. My last question, and this is going to be a real interesting conversation because we've so far been very focused on people and individuals, and now I'm
Yeah.
going to throw out a tech AI
Mm,
into the conversation, and that's kind of like it seems
yeah.
like two very different things. But I'm curious what your point of view on is on AI and how it's going to be impacting change management practices
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to help, maybe it's not. And then how it could change how we're thinking about change in general, those change initiatives that we go through.
Yeah. I think obviously this story is still being written, but
Yeah.
um, it occurred to me the other day, somebody asked me this question and I thought about high school geometry. And you're probably like, what? And so,
Even more bizarre.
yeah.
All this together.
So,
Yes.
so I know and I remember from high school geometry that sine is 1 over cosine or something like that. Remember that?
Yep.
You learn the
Sure.
formula and
Yes.
your teacher would make you prove it,
Yeah.
right? You had to do the proofs. And I remember asking the question, why do I need to do the proof if I already know the answer? And I didn't realize this at the time. He said, because it's about understanding why it's the answer that's so important.
Yep.
And for me, the thing that I don't say that I worry about it because I think AI has a lot of ability to remove the mundane and, help us in interactions that are really, really profound. What I worry about is that people will stop understanding the relationships between concepts and people that are required to change real behavior, right? And
Yep.
so that's the part for me that I think we're still working through. Somebody told me a story the other day of a lawyer that used AI to find some legal precedent and they were wrong and they lost this case, right?
Oh,
And it's because they
shoot.
just sort of outsourced the idea. And so
Right.
to me, I think it's still about asking questions. It's still about understanding. It's not just about reading the answer and taking it at face value. Somebody said to me the other day as well that, at the same time, one of the most important skills you can have is understanding the AI agent experience and how to stitch together workflows and how to amplify what you do and that sort of thing. So there's a tension
Yeah.
there, I think, between the desire to embrace the the removal of complexity that these tools will give us and not slip too far into shutting off that part of our brain that's still essential for understanding deeply the experience of other people, which is really what change is about.
It's I agree with all of that. One of the things that I've been thinking through, and I've mentioned this in my book, I think we talked about this too, like making the best apple pie. Like when I was a kid and I needed the best apple pie, who did I go to? I picked up the phone and I called my grandma, right?
Right.
And I had a great conversation with my grandma. There's a relationship there. She was a great cook and she had the best apple pie recipe. Okay. And then as I became a mother and a young adult, starting my own family, if I needed a apple pie recipe, where did I go to then? Google,
Google,
right?
right.
And I sifted through all of these different recipes and I looked at everyone else's reviews and how great they were or whatnot. And I was still getting some interaction on that because I was looking at other people's opinions. Now, what my daughters are going to do as they make their first apple pies as they get older is they're just going to go to an AI agent and
Right.
ask them for the best apple pie recipe, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. So, what I get concerned about when it comes to this evolution of AI, I think there's a lot of benefit to it, but people are going to become more isolated, potentially
Mm.
more lonely. And I feel like they're going to feel like they're on their own journey and nobody else is going through that journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And I think that's really well said. And
yeah.
so I would even extend your analogy to say, but your daughter's still going to have to make it, right? She's still going
She will.
to have the ability. And I think about some of these coaching moments that I'm in that you're probably in, right? I've been coaching this woman that's part of my client team that I'm with right now, and she's been working on applying for a promotion. And,
Right.
we could have gone in and searched AI and said, give me the best formula for preparing for an interview. And it would give me an answer. But is that answer the best for her? And we spent 7, 8 hours in conversations, right? There were
Right.
tears, there were her struggling and not knowing what to do. And, I think our value as practitioners is, can you identify the moment that changes somebody's life or beliefs or perspective that really shifts them? And to me, there will always be a need for that skill. And that
Yes.
skill can only be learned through practice, right? And
Yes.
so you know, I'm optimistic. I worry about the things that we all worry about, but you know, as long as we use it for good, you know, I think
Mhm.
that's a big piece of it.
Okay. Well, I am so thrilled that we had this conversation today. I would like for everyone that's watching this video, where can they buy your book? Where's the best place to buy your book? And if they want to get in contact with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so yeah, a good starting point is my website, michaeljlopez.coach. All of my socials are on there. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram. I have started a LinkedIn Live series, which really is another form of a podcast that I
Yep,
started doing without really thinking it through all the way, but that was
as we do.
I'm glad I did. And so I've put all those episodes on a YouTube channel that folks can subscribe to as well. On my website is the link to the book. You can find it on, you know, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Ingram, all those
Mhm.
places. Just search my name and change, and it comes right up. So it's pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any parting words for the audience today? Any final thoughts?
You know, I love that we're having this conversation, and I love that you've got a following around this conversation. I think it's never too late to start changing. And anyone who tells you that you can't learn something new, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, what I tell people is I hope you learn something new the day before they close the casket.
Yes.
It just changes how you do it. And, you know, change isn't just possible, it's necessary. And please check out the book, and hopefully that inspires you to head out on your change journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And thanks for everyone for watching today. This is another Tea Time with me, Amanda Prochaska. I am the founder and chief wonder officer of Wonder Services. Wonder Services was started 6 years ago to really focus on solving the problem of change adoption. And we're so thrilled to be able to bring not only our series, but Michael to you today. And if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe button because we love bringing this valuable content to you. So until then, cheers, Michael. Your
Cheers.
drink is better than mine, but cheers. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. All right.